We're glad to have Ed Smith, Mayor of Marshall, here. Thank you for coming. And Frank Johnson, our city manager, thank you for coming. Anna Lane is our librarian. And of course, our special guest today is Audrey Kariel and her husband Lewis.
Wow, thank you. We're glad to be out.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Audrey was the one that kind of instigated this. And Ken Poindexter and I went over to Audrey's house one day, and she presented a similar program to us, so we would, because I was almost a teenager, wasn't I?
Almost.
I was barely in Marshall when this happened for the library, and it just brought to the fore what we do as a community. The other people that are here are representatives of the City Library Board. The City Commission has a board that's an advisory board to the city on the library. And then we have representatives here from the Friends of the Public Library from our board. And my name is Ken Conwell, and I'm president of the Friends. Will Avery he and I never met, but I called him and I'd heard good things about him, and he has graciously accepted our invitation to film this for Audrey, and he does a lot of this and has a whole library of things on special events, history of Marshall. So if you want to talk to him about that, he is making some extra copies, for Anna requested them, so we're going to have some extra copies. But the purpose of our meeting is for Audrey to talk to us and kind of focus us back, and if you can go back into the early 70s or even before, and bring us kind of back to where it all started. So Audrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this. You know, history is written sometimes from a perspective. It can be written in third person, which when you leave, you're going to get a copy of this that Ken did for me. And it's kind of a third person history that you can take with you and look. We've got copies. You can take it and look at it and think about what I've said, because I'm going to do mine kind of in first person. It's a more personal type discussion of where I saw it develop and come from. And I guess that I want all of the friends and the trustees and maybe the city and us to think back. I've been down memory lane just trying to get this all together and refocus on it. You know, it was a long time ago. Public libraries are not new. Benjamin Franklin, 1778, had the first one. And there have been many public libraries across this country for years and years and years. And libraries are an essential part of a community. If you don't have an informed citizenry, then we're all going to be in trouble. And another thing that libraries do, in my opinion, is it develops a quality of life. And maybe after I give this little story, that you'll see where I came from and how I came to feel the passion that I do for public library services. After we had Benjamin Franklin start the public libraries, Andrew Carnegie came along, and he gave a lot of his wealth for buildings, for cities, all over the country. But there were restrictions on those funds, and so some cities had them and some didn't. Marshall was a very unique situation in that the Carnegie money was given to Wiley. And so that's how we got ours, because the city didn't feel up to doing it at that time. I grew up in Corsicana, Texas, where they had a beautiful Carnegie Public Library. Richard is also from Corsicana, and I'm sure he remembers it. And it was there that I really developed my love of learning and my love of reading and my love of public libraries. It just meant a lot to me, just as I'm sure the libraries here meant a lot to the people who grew up here. But in 1950, I met this gentleman, and he brought me to Marshall. And my mother, y'all may not know this about me, but I was a musician in my early life. And my mother knew Bernice Brown, and she called Bernice and she said, Audrey is moving to Marshall and I want her to continue her piano. She needs to continue her piano. So Bernice and my mother decided that I needed to be in the Marshall Music Club, which as soon as I got to town practically I joined, and I was a member for 19 years. Well, while I was in the club, I realized that the club was one of the owners of the library. And we had to spend probably as much time or maybe more time on library things than we did on musical things. And for some reason that picture wasn't exactly right, but there were 4 other clubs and we all worked together and did the best we could under the circumstances we were there. Now, Marshall was not the only community where women's clubs did this. It was kind of a thing where it was a badge of honor not to use tax money at that time. And so they did the best they could with what they had to work with, and for years they provided library services and did it as well as they could. But the day came when Bernice decided that I needed to be president of the music club, which was, I still can't believe she did this to me. She nominated me and I said, I can't do that, I'm raising my family. And she said, yes, you can. And she said, not only can you do it, but you will do it, and I am going to help you. And I was very, very young in those years. This would have been in about the 60s. So I did serve for 2 years as president of this club. Bernice also had her eye on Miss Ina Jean Bennett sitting over there. And she had to follow me as president of the music club. So that was probably about 4 years where we were really feeling the responsibility of public library service. Plus, my children were growing up. They were requiring research for school. I knew E.M. Adams out at East Texas Baptist University, and because he was a personal friend, I felt very comfortable just taking my kids out there. And they really didn't miss anything. There really was not a lot of research to be done there. Believe it or not, there were no computers back then. And so some children, if they knew Mr. Adams, went out to ETBU. Everyone was welcome to Wiley. Black and white students alike used it for many, many years, and it provided a real help to our community.